Welcome back to the journey through the Bible. Previously on Joseph's journey in installment 14, he went to jail. He didn't deserve to go to jail. He hadn't done anything wrong, but the wife of Potiphar, the servant, the captain of the guard of Pharaoh, lied about him, and Joseph ended up in the prison. He was there for a long time when finally there was just a ray of light that peeked out. A couple of Pharaoh's top servants ticked him off and ended up in the prison. And they both had dreams, and Joseph interpreted those dreams. The dreams turned out exactly as Joseph had said. Could this be his way out? Well, the one who survived, the chief cupbearer, forgot about Joseph. And Joseph was there in prison for a long time. And I wonder if he was getting near the end of his rope. Just saying. Anyway, today we'll move on in that story and see what new twists and turns are coming our way in installment 15. But let's start with a word of prayer. Father, thank you so much for your amazing word, your word of truth, and all that you teach us in it. Thank you for this incredible story about Joseph, the son of Jacob, the grandson of Isaac and great grandson of Abraham, and how you used him and his really challenging, difficult experiences to put your people right where they needed to be, in keeping with your perfect plan for them and for the redemption of humanity. Teach us today, Father. Speak to us. In Jesus' name we ask it. Amen. So, have you ever had an amazing turnaround? Something that had your head spinning? I remember years ago, Joni and I really wanted to go to China. We had this incredible opportunity, and it seemed like it had opened up after months of waiting and trying. Finally, we were going to get there, and we were told to go to Washington, D.C., to the Chinese embassy, and there we would get the documents that we needed to make this big journey happen. And we were so excited. We stayed in a nice hotel. We were going to go to the consulate first thing in the morning, and then we're going to go do some sightseeing and enjoy our nation's capital. It was just going to be a wonderful day. And then we got to the embassy and were turned away by the Chinese officials. They told us we didn't have the paperwork we needed. And man, we went flat as a pancake. It was like, oh my gosh, how could this happen to us? The rest of the day was miserable. The 5-6 hour trip home to Concord was terrible. We just felt like we were driving through the bowels of hell. It was awful. But then within a week, we had sent an email to our recruiter. He had sent us some new documents, overnighting them from China. We went back up to Washington, D.C., and in the space of a week's time, we were on our way to China. Everything had turned around, and life was good. Just this amazing turnaround for us. Have you ever had something happen like that in your life? If so, then you have a little bit of an idea of what's coming Joseph's way. Now, first, the bad news: he's in prison. He's been forgotten by the chief cupbearer. But chapter 41 of Genesis begins when 2 full years had passed. Wow, wrap your mind around that. I mean, 2 full years, and it may be, uh, well, we'll find out in just a second how long it's been. Um, it has been a long time for Joseph in prison. And again, can't help but wonder if he's giving up. But then something happened. Pharaoh went to sleep and he had these bizarre dreams. In his dreams, he saw these 7 fat, sleek, good looking cows grazing along the Nile. Kind of cows Pharaoh's proud to have in his domain. And then up out of the Nile came 7 gaunt, ugly looking cows. I mean, Pharaoh had never seen cows looking like that in Egypt. And they ate up the 7 fat, sleek looking cows, but then they still looked just as gaunt, just as sickly as they had before. Pharaoh woke up. He went back to sleep, hoping he wouldn't have any more dreams like that, but he did. He saw these stalks that had 7 amazing heads of grain on them, full and again, the kind of grain that you can really make some good food, some good bread out of, right? And then these 7 sickly, withered stalks came up, and they swallowed up the good stalks, but they looked just as withered and pitiful as before. So Pharaoh woke up, and he had no idea what he had just seen. And he called in all of his advisors, his magicians, the wise men of Egypt, and he told them his dreams, and none of them had a clue what those dreams meant. Now, all of the sudden, after these 2 full years, Pharaoh's cupbearer, his chief cupbearer, remembered. I'm reminded of my shortcomings, he admitted to Pharaoh. There was a time when you were angry with me and with you put us in prison. And we each had a dream that one night. And there was a young Hebrew man in the prison attending to us. And we told him our dreams, and things turned out exactly as he said they would. I was restored to my position, and the chief baker was hanged. Well, Pharaoh said, nobody else can tell me what my dream means. So it says he sent for Joseph, and he was quickly brought from the dungeon. When he was shaved and changed his clothes, he came before Pharaoh. Wow, the big break Joseph's been waiting for. And now Pharaoh says to him, I've been told that you can interpret dreams. When somebody tells you what they've dreamed, you can tell them what it means. And Joseph, the first words out of Joseph's mouth were, I cannot do it. Now, if I'd been in prison as long as Joseph's been there, big reveal, we're about to find out how long it was, I don't think I'd have led with that statement. But he quickly added, but God will give Pharaoh the answer he desires. You see there? That's the humility that we were talking about that was previously missing in Joseph. He's not going to take credit. He's going to tell Pharaoh what his dreams mean, but he's not going to take credit for it. He's going to give the credit to God. And when we honor God, God blesses us. And God is getting ready to pour out an amazing, amazing blessing on Joseph. And it doesn't come a moment too late. Anyway, Pharaoh tells him the dreams about the cows and the heads of grain, and Joseph quickly tells him, he processes all that, and he says, your dreams are one and the same. God has shown you what's about to happen. And he's given it to you in 2 forms because it's been determined and it's going to happen quickly. But you need to be ready for this. Here's what's coming down. There are going to be 7 years of plenty in Egypt. We're going to have abundant harvest, lots of grain, lots of prosperity. Times are going to be really good. But those 7 years are going to be followed by 7 years of famine. And the years of famine are going to be so severe that they're going to wipe out the years of prosperity and abundance so that people won't even remember that they took place. So here's what Pharaoh needs to do. So Joseph's giving him a twofer. Again, he's humbled, giving all the credit to God, but he's still confident. He's still the sharp young man who directed his father's cattle and sheep farm and all his flocks there. He headed up Potiphar's house so that Potiphar didn't concern himself with anything but the food he ate. He headed up the prison so that the prison guard didn't worry about anything with Joseph in charge. And now he's got the plan for Egypt and for what can happen to help them survive the years of famine that are coming his way. He began in verse 33. Now let Pharaoh look for a discerning and wise man and put him in charge of the land of Egypt. Let Pharaoh appoint commissioners over the land to take a fifth of the harvest of Egypt during the 7 years of abundance. They should collect all the food of these good years that are coming and store up the grain under the authority of Pharaoh to be kept in the cities for food. This food should be held in reserve in the country to be used during the 7 years of famine that will come upon Egypt so that the country may not be ruined by the famine. Wow, pretty sharp. I mean, Joseph was God just wired him so that he had a good, sharp, keen mind, because that would really come in handy, both at his father's household, in Potiphar's household, in the prison, and now serving Pharaoh. The plan seemed good to Pharaoh and to all his officials. See, God gave him favor with the king of Egypt and all of his people. Can we find anyone like this man, one in whom the Spirit of God, it says in my 1978 NIV, also could be translated because Pharaoh was not a worshiper of the one true God. The Spirit of the gods, plural, was no doubt a polytheist. And so Pharaoh said to Joseph, since God has made all this known to you, there is no one so discerning and wise as you. You shall be in charge of my palace, and all my people are to submit to your orders. Only with respect to the throne will I be greater than you. Wow. Talk about a turnaround. It sounds like in a matter of hours, I mean, certainly less than a 24-hour period, Joseph goes from being the head of the prison where he has been. Verse 46, Joseph was 30 years old when he entered the service of Pharaoh. He was 17 years old when he was heading up his father's home, beaten up by his brothers, taken down to Egypt. So somewhere in that 17th year, he ended up in Egypt and then in prison. So now let's just say in rough years, 13 years in prison. And now in the space of 24 hours, he is Pharaoh's right-hand man. Nobody has more power in Egypt than Joseph. And he said, I hereby put you in charge of the whole land of Egypt. Pharaoh took his signet ring from his finger and put it on Joseph's finger. He dressed him in robes of fine linen, put a gold chain around his neck. He had him ride in a chariot as his second in command, and men shouted before him, make way, make way. Here comes somebody really important. Thus he put him in charge of the whole land of Egypt. And Pharaoh said, I am Pharaoh. I'm the king. I'm the boss. But without your word, no one will lift a hand or foot in all of Egypt. Wow. Again, he needed to be humbled to be able to handle that position. I mean, it's one thing to be in control of your family's estate. It's one thing to be in control of Potiphar's estate. It's one thing to be in control and running the whole prison system in Egypt. It's another thing to be the prime minister, the ruler, the CO, the CEO, whatever you want to call him, of the land of Egypt. Now, Joseph has to handle that, and God's given him the humility and the wisdom and the favor to do so. Pharaoh gave Joseph the name Zaphanath Paneah and gave him Asenath, daughter of Potiphar, priest of On, to be his wife. And Joseph went throughout the land of Egypt. He began to put together his team. He began to put together his plan. He began to scope out what they had so that he could get it just right. He had made a big promise to Pharaoh about what he would do, and he intended to keep that promise and make sure that things went well. During the 7 years of abundance, we're told the land produced plentifully. Joseph collected all the food produced in those 7 years of abundance in Egypt and stored it in the cities. In each city, he put the food grown in the fields surrounding it. Joseph stored up huge quantities of grain, like the sand of the sea. It was so much that he stopped keeping records because it was beyond measure. I mean, have you ever thought about counting the grains of sand on a beach? Of course not. Who could do that? You couldn't begin to count that all up. And God blessed Egypt with such an abundance, and Joseph stored up so much food that he couldn't even keep track of the total amount that was there. We're told that God also blessed him with a family. Now, this is not a pure-born Hebrew family, but Joseph is in Egypt. He's given this the daughter of the priest of On, that is Heliopolis, and it says before the years of famine came, 2 sons were born to Joseph. The firstborn he named Manasseh. Manasseh means forget. That is, God has enabled me to forget the pain, the suffering, the difficulty that I went through from the time I was 17 and betrayed by my brothers till the time I was 30 and leading a prison. And then he named his second son Ephraim, which meant twice fruitful. God has blessed me with 2 sons here in the land that had been my land of suffering, but now is my land of blessing. The 7 years of abundance in Egypt came to an end, and the 7 years of famine began. There was famine all over the other lands, but in the whole land of Egypt, there was food. Others were suffering, others were in need, others were going down, but in Egypt, they had plenty of food. So what are those nations going to do? Well, the people of Egypt cried out to Pharaoh. Pharaoh told the Egyptians, go to Joseph, do what he tells you to do. When the famine spread over the whole country, Joseph opened the storehouses and sold grain to the Egyptians, for the famine was severe throughout Egypt. And all the countries came to Egypt to buy grain from Joseph because the famine was severe in all the world. All the area around them were struck by this devastating famine. They all went to Egypt to buy food. So what's going to happen for Pharaoh and his nation? They are going to be loaded. I mean, it's going to be hard times for the nations and the people around them, even the Egyptians, but it's going to be good times for Pharaoh and his entourage. They're going to be counting the money big time. So that takes us up to chapter 42. And now the action shifts from Egypt, where Joseph has experienced this amazing turnaround, and life is as good as it could be for him there. We're going back to Canaan. When Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why do you just keep looking at each other?" He continued, "I have heard that there is grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy some for us, so that we may live and not die." That is, they probably would have liked to just have waited it out in Canaan for the harvest to come, for God to bless them. But again, as we've already seen and talked about, God moves in mysterious ways. He's not coming to the rescue. He's not giving them grain, but he's given them money. He's given them things they can sell. So Jacob sends his sons down to Egypt to get some food. It tells us then 10 of Joseph's brothers went down to buy grain, but Jacob did not send Benjamin, Joseph's brother, with the others because he was afraid that harm might come to him. So Israel's sons were among those who went to buy grain, for the famine was in the land of Canaan also. So Jacob still has his favorite, right? He lost his favorite son, his firstborn son, by Rachel, but he's not going to lose Benjamin. So he sends 10 of his other sons, the expendable ones, I suppose, in his mind. And off they go to buy food to bring back so they can survive the famine too. Verse 6 of chapter 42. Now Joseph was the governor of the land, the one who sold grain to all its people. So when Joseph's brothers arrived and bowed down to him with their faces to the ground, as soon as Joseph saw his brothers, he recognized them, but he pretended to be a stranger and spoke harshly to them. "Where do you come from?" Now, before we go into this interchange between them, what did Joseph's brothers do? They bowed down to him. "Do you think you'll actually rule over us? We'll show this dreamer what's going to come of his dreams. We'll show him that we're not going to bow down to him. He's not going to rule over us." And yet, exactly what God had prophesied with Joseph's original dream comes to fruition right there. I mean, we're reading prophecy fulfilled as the brothers of Joseph bow down to him now as the governor of Egypt, asking him for food. And notice that Joseph spoke harshly to them. Was there some pent-up anger? Joseph's been humbled, and he's going to put all the pieces of the puzzle together and figure this out and explain it to his brothers later. But for now, he just has a little edge toward them. He's not going to let it rule him, because the Bible warns us, Hebrews 12:15, don't let a root of bitterness grow up, which defiles so many. Bitterness against somebody when they've hurt you, if you allow that to rule you and you feed that, somebody said it's like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. It doesn't destroy the other person when you're bitter. It destroys you from the inside out. Bitterness is like a cancer, which is why Scripture calls on us to forgive. And Joseph's certainly going to do that, but we need to learn that lesson. When somebody has hurt us, we need to let go of it. Let it go and allow mercy and forgiveness to be the way of our lives. "Anyway, where do you come from?" he demanded of them. "From the land of Canaan," they replied, "to buy food." Straight up truth. Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Could have, maybe should have, but they weren't looking for him. Isn't it amazing the things sometimes that you don't see because you're not looking for them at the right place and the right time? Anyway, they didn't recognize him. Then he remembered his dreams about them and said to them, "Hey, brothers, remember what I dreamed years ago? Look how it turned out." No, Joseph is going to play this situation out differently. "You are spies," he said. "You have come to see where our land is unprotected." Wow, they didn't see that coming. He asked them where they were from. They said, "From the land of Canaan, we've come to buy food," which totally true, right? I mean, his brothers at least are walking in truth now. "No, my lord," they answered, "your servants have come to buy food. We are all sons of one man. Your servants are honest men, not spies." They are being honest, but they certainly had their failings. Joseph was well aware of that. "No," he said to them, "you have come to see where our land is unprotected." But they replied, "Your servants were 12 brothers, the sons of one man who lives in the land of Canaan. The youngest is now with our father, and one is no more." Ah, Joseph knows the truth. They're kind of hedging the truth there, aren't they? They know they sold him. They don't know what became of him. As far as they know, he's no more, but what they don't know is he's looking at them. He is still alive, and his dreams have come true, and he's ruling them. But Joseph said, "It is just as I told you, you are spies. And this is how I'll test you. I'll give you a chance to prove that you're good men, that you're honest men. As surely as Pharaoh lives, you will not leave this place unless your youngest brother comes here. Send one of your number to get your brother, and the rest of you will be kept in prison. I got stuck in prison all these years because you guys sold me down here. Maybe you'll spend some time in prison so that your words may be tested to see if you're telling the truth. Then, if you are not, as surely as Pharaoh lives, you are spies." And he put them all in custody for 3 days. Now, he changes his plan. He says, "I'm going to keep one of your brothers here." And the one chosen for that, I believe, is Simeon. And yeah. And he said, "I'm going to keep Simeon to make sure you come back. You all go back, get your younger brother, bring him down here, show me that you're telling me the truth, and I'll let Simeon go. I'll know that you're honest men. We're good to go." All right. So now the test has been put before them. They don't know what's going on, but can we just, in common vernacular, say Joseph is messing with them, and the fun has just started, or the test has just started to see what has really happened. Before he sends them off, the brothers get into an argument, just so you know what guilt does to you. If you haven't already figured that out, it said, they said to one another, and again, Joseph can recognize what they're saying. They don't realize that because he'd been using an interpreter. "Surely we're being punished because of our brother. We saw how distressed he was when he pleaded with us for his life, but we would not listen. That's why this distress has come upon us." And then Reuben hops in. "Didn't I tell you not to sin against the boy? But you wouldn't listen. Now we must give an accounting for his blood." Again, they didn't realize Joseph hearing all this, understanding what they're saying, and it hits him so hard that he turned away from them and wept. Yeah, there's scars, there's wounds that Joseph is still healing from, and his brothers now are dealing with that overwhelming guilt. How is God going to work this together for good? Well, some of you know the story. For those of you who don't remember, come back for installment 16, and we'll see how this all works out.